Welcome back to The Give and Go. I'm your coach, Reynoso, here with my boy,
Soltero. What's up, y'all?
Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Give us a like right now, especially if you're a Manchester United fan. We're going to be reacting to two Premier League matches today. The first being Man United versus Southampton, and the second one being Brighton versus Ipswich. But let's start with Man U at Old Trafford with the AMAD hat trick, brother.
And that's the only thing to talk about, man. AMAD, the Ivorian, getting his first hattie of his career. And what a time to do it, because it was about to get really embarrassing for Manchester United at home against bottom of the league Southampton. It took 80 grueling minutes for United to get on the board. But it was Diallo going straight at Walker-Peters, getting a little lucky, but the finish was perfection. Absolutely. And then from there, we get a second goal. Perfect, lovely pass from Eriksen. Diallo takes it brilliantly off that volley. And then the third goal is just Southampton debauchery, brother. And Diallo takes full advantage of that. A hat trick, a big day for Diallo, and a very important 3 points for Amorim and Manchester United.
Yeah, and a big season for Diallo, man. I did not realize his numbers. 5 goals, 6 assists. Maybe now it's 6 goals, 6 assists. I'm not sure. And his last 13 starts for Man United, he has clearly been their player of the season. Yeah. Saving them in this match, because the narrative for those first 70 minutes was going to be Manchester United in a relegation battle here against Southampton, losing at home. But, you know, what I realized, or rather what I came to notice, is that Southampton is an addict that's addicted to losing. And today, around the 70th minute, they relapsed. They just couldn't help themselves, man. Yeah. They just couldn't, despite how well they played, in my opinion, in that first half especially. The moment Dibbling goes off the pitch, shit changes for Southampton, and they end up conceding 3 straight goals.
And that's my biggest problem, is Juric acting like he's got a stacked bench. Bro, what are you doing, man? Making 5 changes?
Bro, 5.
When you had a lead, bro, it's not, you can't do that. You can't do that when you have the worst bench in the league. You make the 11 starters play the entire 90.
I know, man.
And they're going to die out there, but that's okay. You make a change if you're losing, man. Bringing Dibbling off was a huge mistake. Putting Downs on Smallbone on big mistake.
Yeah, his demeanor too, bro. You think he's like in a World Cup final, the way he's managing on the side, bro. He's like he's just so invested in the game. It's funny. It really took me by surprise, because I hadn't really focused on him on the sideline. But interesting decision making today, and kind of to just highlight the players of Southampton. Obviously, Tyler Dibbling is a baller. He is a baller. After what I saw today, he reminds me of, you know, kind of like Aston Villa Jack Grealish a little bit.
Dude, yes.
Honestly, man, I would like to see more output, but he's so young right now, 18 years old. Yeah. I want to see him get called up with the international team as well for England, dude. Yeah. This is a future star in the making. But then on the other side, stood out a lot to me today, Sulemana.
Dude,
oh my goodness,
God.
He had Lenny Euro in his pocket for a full 90 minutes. Only problem is he couldn't finish his opportunities. And he had the opportunity, man. He had the chance to make it a 2-0 match at one point. Couldn't finish, and you see what ends up happening. But I wanted to highlight him because I thought he was great for Southampton.
He was fantastic, and it's crazy to think that like 3 weeks ago, he was getting subbed off in the 20th minute against Tottenham when Tottenham had a 5-0 lead by halftime.
Jesus.
Crazy. The mentality you can have, and this is the good side of it, with Sulemana not really taking heed to that substitution against Tottenham and just going at Manchester United, specifically Euro. And yes, Sulemana should have finished at least one of those chances, man.
I think he should have.
He should have. Yeah. He had one in the first half. That was a little tight angle. I'm okay with that miss, but the one in the second half, he really should have done a lot better. But more importantly, I learned that Euro can't sprint, dude.
Bro,
he can't sprint.
This is him at his peak right now, by the way.
Yeah.
Like peak sprinting abilities. This is the fastest he's ever gonna be, man. From here on out, it's going downhill. He knew he could not keep up with him, and he got burnt multiple times. Yeah. Lenny Euro, the product that almost made it to Real Madrid at one point based off of transfer rumors, ends up Manchester United, and I'm not seeing the world-class talent that I've been told that he has. Granted, he is young, and it might take some time for him, but so far, he's had his moments of, you know, being questionable, and I think it was on display today.
Yeah, and it's tough when you're with a side like United, who not just defensively, but all around the pitch, there's a lot of problems. But I'm with you. Right now, I think the hype has been honestly blown out of proportion when it comes to Euro. I see him as a really good center back. Obviously, you have to take into account his age. He can still flourish into a really, really good center back if he just keeps working on his skill set.
What's the takeaway here from Manchester United, who with this victory now is in 12th place, 26 points. Southampton stays down at 20 with no points out of this game. For Manchester United, what's the takeaway here? I mean, you end up with this emotional comeback, but it is against the worst team in the league, man. Yeah. And it's in a situation where you weren't supposed to be down 1-0, but you did it by your own volition through an own goal from Ugarte, I believe. What's the takeaway here, man?
I need to see so much more. I really do. From both United and also Amorim. I will say, though, as a collective, the ability to come back, especially with their second half performance, very positive. Every player you saw in United really believed, and starting at that 70th minute, it was pure onslaught. They were going to get a goal through somebody, bro. I really do think it was going to happen. And so that I do credit Amorim and the entire 11 that was on the pitch today, because they did believe in themselves to get this win. The only problem is that it's against the worst team in the league. So I need to see so much more from this United side, because if Diallo's not scoring, man, I don't know who else is.
That's my thing.
I really don't. Because today, Garnacho said he didn't want a goal, and more specifically, Anthony. Oh my God. Missing the most easiest of sitters, worst miss of the month so far across all of Europe. What a horrible miss from Anthony. But you could extend that to pretty much every other United striker outside of Diallo.
Yeah, I'll give them credit for their energy and their activity. Garnacho was on the ball so much, man, so much. Xerxes, too, was active as well. But the decision-making in the final third doesn't seem to be there for anybody outside of Amad Diallo. And that's what concerns me. I agree. If he's not scoring, I don't know who's going to do it, because Garnacho just isn't clinical. He can have his moments, but never really flourishes the way that you want him to. And the rest of the players, Xerxes, I mean, even Bruno Fernandes hasn't been at his best as of recently. I need to see more from the whole offensive front, being more clinical, more decisive. And the fact that they weren't that today against Southampton, the worst team in the league, and you needed a hat trick out of Diallo, does scare me a little bit for what is to come from Manchester United. But at the very least, they avoided, the big headlines, the major drama that would have come from losing to Southampton at home by doing this comeback with Amad Diallo's hat trick.
Yeah, and just another point of contention, United have the worst defense off of corner kicks going into this game, conceding 32% of their goals off of corner kicks. And today they conceded another goal off of a corner kick. A nice little flick from Dibbling, a little lucky. Of course, it goes off of Ugarte's back, but still very concerning that they seem to be cursed when their opponent has corner kicks. That hasn't been fixed. Now, over a third of their goals has come from the corner kick. So United, I just think in general, both defensively and offensively, have to have a lot to fix.
I completely agree. Any Man United fans watching today, let us know how you feel about your team, how you feel about the comeback today, and Amad Diallo, because it was an electric performance from him specifically. Let's move on to the last match of the day. Ipswich Town hosting Brighton. Ipswich being a team that has recently been showing up in our comments, as I saw many people reach out, happy that we were able to talk about them recently in our Premier League grades episode, but wishing that we could talk about them a little bit more in depth. So I went into this game, excited. They're hosting a team that I think they could potentially beat or even get a draw out of. And after 30 minutes, I leave it with my head down, man, because Ipswich Town ends up losing this game 2-0 through a Mitoma goal and a Reuter goal as well to make it a 2-0 victory.
Yeah, and when you look at the second half specifically, it's completely deserved for Brighton. Ipswich were the second best team on the pitch today. Brighton smothered them in that second half. Ipswich realistically couldn't even get the ball past the halfway mark in that second half. So for me, this is a tough loss for Ipswich, but I think this is their level. Brighton's right at mid-table right now, and I think that's as high as Ipswich can realistically punch. In the first half, it was tight. It was actually very, very tight. Ipswich was able to create a lot of chances, their best one coming from Broadhead, who danced his way to the edge of the box, got off a really nice curling shot, but it was met with a really good goal stop. So Ipswich had their chances specifically in the first half, but in that second half, they just tired. And the possession-oriented football that Brighton had really outclassed Ipswich, and it's why they end up losing today. And I think this is their level. Any team right at mid-table or higher, Ipswich ain't winning. Yeah. They're not going to win. But the good news is, as we saw today in this first half, and as we've seen, below mid-table, Ipswich has a really good chance of winning. So that's why I still believe there is hope for Ipswich to avoid relegation at the end of the season, because they do have good players. They do have a really good identity already placed in this team. So they just got to keep working. But if you're expecting them to win against a top 10 side, it's just not going to happen.
Not going to happen. And I think what I was looking at more, so this is where we're at with Ipswich Town now. We're looking at goal difference. We're looking at goal difference because when they went down 1-0, they were in 17th, right above Wolves, where they're tied with points at 16. But having conceded that second goal, they're equally tied on goal difference as well. So now they're in the relegation zone because of that second goal they conceded, which were some pretty goofy goals. But either way, I think those goals were going to come. Mitoma scoring the first one. I think the goalkeeper could have done a little bit better, but maybe he had his vision of sight blurred a little bit there. And then the second one was just a weird bobble in the box that just kind of ended up falling through to Rutter's feet, and he just scores it pretty easily. Brighton wins 2-0 and gets a result here. They had me concerned in the first half because Ipswich came to play in that game. Yeah. And if they had gotten a surprise goal in that first half, I wonder how Brighton would have responded. But they were able to control it in the second half pretty admirably. They get the 3 points here in a game where they should have gotten those 3 points. So honestly, credit to them in that aspect. They move on forward. But I don't know, not much to take away from Brighton personally.
No. And I need to see more from Brighton because prior to this game, they've been really struggling. I don't think it means a lot considering Ipswich are in a relegation battle for Brighton to win this game. You look at it on paper, they should be winning this game. So a 2-0 win is good for Brighton, but they just need to be playing better against opponents that are more on their level, and that hasn't been happening. So honestly, I'm with you. I didn't really learn much from Brighton. But for Ipswich, just, closing thoughts on them. They really are a championship level side that has Premier League quality players on their team. And just the way that they approach it, they're so athletic, and they really use that side of them to try to hit back at their opponents. But as we saw in the second half, quality is very important in the Prem. And if you don't have possession, if you don't have players that can constantly pose threat, you're just not going to get the win. And that's why Brighton ultimately took over because, they have 5-6 players that are, very good on the ball, whereas Ipswich realistically don't.
I saw something really interesting, though, during the game. I did not know this was a thing, but the camera panned to a certain player that was waiting in the stands, who apparently is their new signing.
Yeah.
20 million spent on this player. I don't even know his name. But it was a moment where I was like, I'll have to research that afterwards. Let me know in the comments down below if you know about this player. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's Philogene. He was on the books of Villa, and he actually made some appearances this year. I think he was in the championship last year on loan.
Yeah.
I believe, and I think he had a good season, which is why he's affiliated in the Prem now. But I think he's I think
it's like I felt like a tease of the next season to come type shit.
I think he's on Ipswich's level. Like he's going to be good because he is a very good direct player.
What is he a winger? Or?
Yeah, he's a winger.
Okay.
He's a winger. But I think he's on the level of Ipswich. Maybe he'll be a little bit better in front of goal, but that won't mean much if he's not going to get those chances from his midfield. Right. You know what I mean?
Right.
20 million?
20, bro?
I think is a little steep, honestly.
That stood out to me. 20 million. McAllister was 30.
Yeah, exactly, bro.
They wanted him, and they got their guy. I want to see what impact this guy plays and when he even does end up playing for Ipswich Town. But Ipswich fans, let me know in the comments down below. How do you feel about today's match? What are your thoughts on the rest of the season? And for Brighton as well, big victory here, or just an admirable victory at the very least. You got the result when you needed it, and now they move into 9th place in the Premier League. That's all we got for today. 2 quick matches. Let us know in the comments down below how you feel about the Premier League, the standings, the players, everything. And we'll be back very soon with another daily reaction. Till next time, guys. Peace.